This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 68. And in this episode, I speak to Dan the Man about taking risks, which isn't particularly exciting. But what is exciting is in this show, Dan manages to embarrass me quite a lot. But, you know, I have embarrassed him many times on the show, so it was probably my turn. If you give it, you have to take it, unfortunately. Anyway, you will probably notice I don't know how to respond to some of the words, some of the questions, actually, in this show, which is a bit embarrassing, but, you know, that's part of life. So, enjoy the show. Remember, all the words are on the website, rockandrollenglish.com. Go there, have fun, and happy listening. Dan the Man, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Oh, fantastic, Dan, because I'm a modern man after last week's show. You? Are you a modern man?
Yeah, you don't look like you're dressing like a modern man today, to be honest.
Well, Dan, believe me, I'm a modern man. Anyway, moving on to today's show, Dan. How do we start the show?
With a review.
Yes. Do you think we have a review?
I think we've had quite a few, actually, haven't we?
The problem with this is when people send them to me on Facebook, Dan the Man sees them because although he never comments on Facebook, as we have said before, he sees everything. Okay? We used the term before, he watches you like a hawk. So he's watching everyone intensely. Every comment, every like, Dan the Man sees it.
I'm there,
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have one. It's from Kurt Espinosa. As always, I apologise if that's not the correct pronunciation. And it says, "Hey Dan and Martin, as a way to celebrate the World Kindness Day, here's my review. Also note the order of the names." He even mentioned this. I mean, Dan and Martin, when did that become a thing?
Alphabetical order.
Good point, actually. Anyway, thanks for that, Kurt. He continues and says, "Anyway, your podcasts are just fantastic. Probably the most rock and roll English podcast I've ever listened to."
Definitely.
Well, he says probably. Dan says definitely. I say absolutely. But, you know, whatever you want. Says quick-witted and great sense of humour. And, of course, today, cheers to Martin on your birthday. Keep on rocking, Kurt. So, Kurt, you left that on my birthday and you still decided to put Dan's name first.
I like him. I really like him.
I like him as well, but I probably would have liked you more, Kurt, if you had put my name first. Nice third conditional there, though. I probably would have liked you more if you had put my name first. Anyway, thanks again, Kurt. So, today's show, Dan, do you know what it is about?
Oh, have you told me?
No, but you never know, Dan. You're a clever guy, kind of. Yeah, so it's about taking risks, Dan, okay?
Okay. Are you a risk taker?
Well, that's it, because I don't know if you have seen, I published a very crazy video yesterday.
I did see, yes.
Well, that was a big risk, Dan, okay? So, yes, I do take risks. And so we're going to look at some risk stuff, how to take risks in life, and then I've got some situations for you at the end, okay? Okay. I want to see if you would risk these situations, okay?
Should be fun.
Okay, so before we start, I've got a quote from Mark Zuckerberg. You know who he is, Dan?
Yes.
So he says, "In a world that's changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you think of that?
I agree. That's why I quit my job.
Well, that's it. Dan did actually take a big risk in life. I was thinking about Zuckerberg. You know, he's the same age as us.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. We've still got time.
Well, I mean, we have this podcast, which in my opinion, is more successful than Facebook. So,
and he actually shit on his friends to build Facebook. Would you do that to me?
So when Dan says he shit on his friends, he actually means like he betrayed them. And yeah, I probably would, Dan. We will be looking at stuff like that later, actually. But yeah, I would not hesitate to shit on you in either way. The literal sense or the metaphorical sense, as we just mentioned. Okay, so apparently happy people take risks, Dan. Okay, so we're going to look at the risks they take. So hopefully you can become more of a happy person. Okay?
Okay, yeah. Like you.
Exactly, Dan. I am your role model in life. Remember, we looked at that last week. Let's say the person you admire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, self-appointed.
Very good. So apparently happy people risk getting turned down. So what does it mean if you risk getting turned down, Dan?
When you
Take your time, Dan. No rush.
When you tell someone you like them and you don't know whether they're going to reject you or...
Yeah. Basically, if you get turned down, it's someone like basically rejects you. So have you ever been turned down in life, Dan?
Oh, God. Too many times. No, I don't need to take time on this one. Yeah. Constant rejection.
Yeah, I feel very similar, but
that's changed for you now, hasn't it? Because I've got some news for everyone who's listening. Martin has a girlfriend.
I was going to say unfortunately is true, but it's not unfortunate.
Could you describe her in 3 words for us?
Shut up, Dan. What are you doing?
I thought you were a risk taker.
She might listen to this podcast.
She'll be listening.
Dan is telling the truth, though. I don't know what she's doing with me. Soon she will realise that I'm a miserable bastard. But for the moment, it's great. Anyway, Dan, moving on. Mm-hmm. Any specific times you've been turned down in life? Because I love to hear about terrible stories about you, and I'm sure the listeners do as well.
What? In any walk of life or in any situation?
Oh, nice term there. In any walk of life. I don't know why we say that, but it just means, any different context of life. Yeah, why not, Dan?
Well, when I left my apartment, when I left England, the guy who looked after the building, I was quite friendly with him. And as I left, I said to him, are you on Facebook? And he got really awkward and he went, oh yeah, but I don't really use it. I said, well, I'll add you on Facebook. And he goes, no, I don't really use it. I said, oh, all right, we'll exchange numbers then. And he went, oh, don't worry about it. If I need you, I'll get in touch with you.
Oh, that is fantastic.
And then he carried on talking to the people who were there and I just had to walk off.
So that's a perfect example of getting turned down. Dan asking a man for his phone number and the man saying no.
Just for friendship.
Sure, Dan, sure. When I was actually in a pub once, my favourite story of getting turned down, I was with a friend. This was obviously before the smoking ban, so people were smoking in a pub. And this man was smoking a pipe. And my friend, who you know, said, excuse me, mate, it's always been my dream to smoke a pipe. Can I smoke a bit of your pipe? And the man said, no.
That's quite a strange question to ask someone.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, it was fantastic. So there's a great phrasal verb there, well, to get turned down. So apparently as well, Dan, happy people risk the other person not saying, I love you too. Okay, so I was just wondering, this is probably why you have never told me you love me, because you are worried that I won't say it back, Dan. Okay, so if you want to tell me that, that's fine.
And what if I don't want to tell you?
Well, I can see in your eyes, Dan. Okay, I can see in your eyes.
Is that why you haven't told me?
Well, that's a difficult question to ask, Dan. I think, like the girlfriend thing, we should just move on.
Yeah, let's move on from this one. Yeah.
Let's just keep going. Okay, another one is they risk going in a talent contest. Okay, so just thinking, Dan, what talent contest are you thinking of entering?
Well, I actually did enter one when I was younger, when I was about...
Oh, what? I've not heard this.
It was a football one.
Oh yeah.
It was.
How did that go?
Well, it went okay, but it was like a weekend football academy thing at our high school, as it happens. But I was only about 6 or 7, and I remember I got to the finals of one of the rounds, and it was in front of the whole sort of like all the students that were there, and I'd been practicing for the day before. It's like just how long could you keep the ball in the air, and then all of a sudden the guy who I was playing against got a really, really high score, and as he came back, I was like a little bit worried. He just whispered in my ear at 7 or 6, beat that. Right? Obviously I didn't, and then I just went back to my spot and cried.
Oh, very good. You did use some nice rock and roll grammar there, though, Dan, when you said I had been practicing for days. Nice past perfect continuous there. Beautiful. And you also used a nice word of whispered. So when you whisper, you speak like that. Yeah. That's whispering. And again, I love to hear these stories.
It was quite a traumatizing experience. What about you?
Well, except the talent contest of the most beautiful person in Essex. You remember that, Dan?
Oh, I can't forget it. Did you ever find out who did it?
No, but basically, I was at home one day reading the local newspaper, and there was a competition of, what was it again?
Essex studs.
Studs, yeah. So a stud is like let's say a beautiful man. And then I was like flicking through the paper, so just sort of casually looking, and then I saw my picture in there with my name spelt wrong. Which probably remains the worst day of my life.
It was a school picture, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, like most people had like real sort of sexy pictures, and then there was me with my school picture. So that was fantastic. So yeah. I didn't win.
Have you still got a copy of that paper?
I think I burnt every single copy that exists. I went round people's houses burning the papers.
We should try and find it so we could put a picture on the website.
Yeah, no, it's not necessary, is it? It's not 100% necessary.
I'm going to reach out to some of your friends who are on the list of people who may have done it. They may have a copy.
Okay, well, you do that, Dan. Good luck with that. Anyway, so again, moving on. There's been a lot of awkward moments in this podcast so far. Notice there when I said so far, it means up until now, up to this point.
We've taken a lot of risks.
Oh yeah, that's me, baby. I love a risk. Okay, so let's get to some of these risks, Dan. Okay, situations. And I want to see what you would do to see if you would take the risk. Okay, notice we take risks. You can run a risk as well. Okay, so, I mean, this one's not much of a risk, but it is a risk. So, you are taking the bus and you don't have a ticket. So, would you risk it to get on the bus?
Yeah.
Have you ever been caught without a ticket?
No, but I would just pretend I didn't understand them if I did.
Well, because you're talking about being in a foreign country.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, well, I tried that once when it happened to me in Rome, and he said, in Italian, have you got a ticket? I pretended not to understand him and said, sorry, I don't speak Italian. And he said, okay, no problem, let's speak English. Do you have a ticket? I thought, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I was thinking of just saying something like, blah, blah, blah. And saying I spoke, I don't know what language, but so I ended up having to pay a €50 fine. So ended up there, it's a nice phrasal verb, something that I didn't really want to do, obviously, but in the end, it happened.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really want to pay that €50. Anyway, so here is an interesting one, Dan, okay?
Yeah. You
see someone kidnap a child, okay? What does it mean, kidnap a child?
Well, to steal a child, yes.
Yeah,
it's quite a serious thing.
We are not recommending to kidnap children on this podcast, okay? Just to be clear. Yeah. This is a hypothetical situation, okay?
Yeah.
So you see someone kidnap a child and start driving away. Your only possibility to stop the situation is to jump in front of the car and risk getting killed. what would you do?
I'd probably try to jump on the car, not in front of the car. I would probably just try to...
Is that a difference?
Yeah, because if you jump on the front of the car...
But the car's driving towards you, Dan.
Yeah, you jump on the front of the car and then you sit on the car.
I'm pretty sure
you just want me to get killed. Okay, yeah, I would jump in front of the car and get killed. What would you do?
I would say, fuck the kid. I am not getting killed. Yeah, no, that's obviously a joke. I don't really know what I would do.
Where did you get this situation from?
I got it from some ridiculous website, but you know.
Okay, so tell me, what are the 3 things you are going to do this week to take more risks? What 3 risks will you take?
Well, the video was a big risk.
That was last week. I mean, from now.
Well, maybe do another video because to do that, I had to put myself out there. What does that mean, Dan?
To open yourself to criticism, but that doesn't count because you've already done it now. So 3 new things I want.
Well, putting yourself out there, Dan, I think is a very important thing in life because without that, as Zuckerberg said, something about you don't get success. I mean, I think his quote was better, but Dan the man is scared of putting himself out there.
I'm not going on the toilet if that's what you're asking.
You had that picture of you of the potato in your mouth on the toilet, but Dan seems to think that like the FBI are watching him, and is like, this is why, although he sees every comment on Facebook, he never comments because he's worried that, I don't know, someone will steal his identity and take all his bank cards and all of this ridiculous stuff. But you need to put yourself out there, Dan. You need to take risks, okay?
I asked you the question. What 3 things are you going to do? Are you going to tell your girlfriend you love her?
Very good question, Dan. Okay. I don't know how to respond to that. It's a very awkward situation you are putting me in here.
Correct.
So I will probably discuss the things that I will actually do, okay?
Okay.
Which will be maybe go to bed maybe at 11 o'clock one night instead of 10 o'clock.
Oh, calm down.
Leave my washing out in the morning and hope it doesn't rain because then it will dry. But then if it does rain, obviously it will get wet. So that's a big risk.
Do you think Zuckerberg does this stuff?
I don't know, maybe. And the last one...
So let me get this right. Your 2 risks so far are go to bed an hour later and leave your washing out.
That's me, Dan. I'm a risk taker. Anyway, the third one I can't think of, and you've embarrassed me enough on this podcast for today.
I've rattled you.
Oh, nice. I've rattled you means like to make someone worried. And yes, I am. Well, I'm not worried. Just, we've spoken about some ridiculous stuff and even the fact of that competition of mine got brought up. So I will probably do what you did when you lost that competition and go and sit in the corner and cry now. Okay, Dan?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Thanks very much for your time.
All right, I'll speak to you later.
See you later. Okay, so that was Dan and me speaking about taking risks and lots of other embarrassing things. I won't talk about that anymore, but what I will talk about is the rock and roll vocabulary. So, at the beginning, we had Dan watches you all like a hawk on Facebook. So, he's watching every move. Just remember that. When we were talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Dan said he shit on his friends to build Facebook. So, remember, there's 2 meanings of that. You can have the literal meaning to shit on someone, which is quite disgusting. So, don't do that. And the metaphorical one is to, like, betray someone. Neither are good. But, that's what it means. We had role model again. I'm Dan's role model. He's, the person he admires. The most interesting one was getting turned down. So if you get turned down, that's obviously when you receive the action. Like Dan got turned down by the man in his building. But it can be used in the active. You can turn someone down. For example, the man turned Dan down. That was actually quite difficult to say. I don't know why. But yeah, remember, it means like when you refuse someone or you get refused. We had a nice term when Dan said in any walk of life. When I was asking him about when he got turned down, And he said, what? In any walk of life. I'm having a lot of difficulty with this today, probably because I got drunk last night. Anyway, in any walk of life, like any context of life, let's say. We had the word whisper, which, remember, is when you speak like that. That's whispering. And we had the word stud. So if someone is a stud, it means that person is generally a very good-looking person and, well, generally good with women, because we use studs to describe men. Certainly not me. And that's what I got entered in as a competition, Essex Studs. As I said many times in the show, though, moving on, we had flicking through the paper. So when you are flicking through the paper, it's just when you're having a quick look and just turning the pages quickly. And we had the term so far, which is a fantastic piece of rock and roll vocabulary that means up until this point. When I said there's been a lot of awkward moments so far in this podcast. Notice it always goes with the present perfect as well, because it's, talking about the past but still relevant. And we had ended up again. So remember, that's when you do something that you didn't want to do. I ended up paying a €50 fine. We had kidnap, about the thing of kidnapping a child. So you can steal a child. That's what kidnap means. Remember, I'm not saying kidnap children. You can also kidnap anyone if you want. You could kidnap the Queen. It'd probably be difficult. She has a lot of security, but you could, let's say, steal the Queen, and that would be kidnapping her. And another one was when I said I had to put myself out there. So when you do that, you sort of, let's say, open yourself up to, let's say, criticism, so everyone can criticize you, which I did with the video. I put myself out there. We also had some nice rock and roll grammar today when Dan said, for example, I had been practicing for days. Past perfect continuous there. He's talking about two actions in the past, one before the other. And he was emphasizing the duration. So I had been practicing 4 days. That's lovely. Anyway, on that note, I will love you and leave you. So thanks a lot for listening. Remember, all of the rock and roll vocabulary is on the website, rockandrollenglish.com. I will see you again next Monday. And in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.